Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Live, and welcome especially to our patrons joining us here for this week 4 Q&A and mailbag session. Appreciate everyone for sending in your questions, and again, just want to shout out everyone for your support. The patron leagues are very spicy right off the bat. I believe Adnan, is it you who just crushed me this week, or is that Alan?
No, I just dropped like 250.
It was 220. It was like at least 220. Like I was like, oh my god, like what is happening?
Oh my
so,
god,
yeah, thank you for that.
my team is a fucking juggernaut
It's disgusting.
that league.
Absolutely disgusting stuff by Adnan there. But I am like undefeated in every other patron league, so I just might have to take an L on that one. But it comes for all of us. It comes for all of us. But of course, welcome in to Adnan. You guys have already seen he's at Say Which Way on the Twitters. We also have with us the man himself, Dave Choate, at the Falcoholic himself. Dave, welcome. How are you doing in the Falcoholic Fantasy League?
Okay. I might win this week. So
there you go.
I was 0-2, and I thought I was going to lose as of like 4 yesterday. So my fortunes have taken a turn. I am very sorry for Demo 3.
Daryl Moore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, hey, sometimes we start slow and sometimes we start fast. Last year was my worst year yet of fantasy, and I think I've lost a total of 1 game so far. I'm definitely going to lose a few. I'm playing in 6 leagues this year, most of the are patron leagues, but I believe I've only lost once so far this year, so it'll probably lose 2 more this week. But
3. We are rolling this year. We are rolling so far.
Yeah.
I lost my 3 starting receivers for a couple of weeks at least, so I'm probably in trouble.
Yeah. My dynasty league is down Eckler and Aaron Jones, and Kelsey week 1. That was the week I lost. I actually won last week without either of my running backs. So
hey, he's back and he's with Taylor Swift now, so
I know.
Things are good.
I mean, I think Kelsey is going to be a league winner now that he's with Taylor Swift. I mean, there's just so much energy in that relationship. Are colliding. Yeah, there's just too much going on there. But yes, Daniel first mentions, did you see your cameo in the Falcons vs. Lions hype video? Yes, I did. It was pointed out by about 20 people, which tells me that you guys are excited for me and also that a lot of people watch those videos. So it was really a double win for me in that regard. But yes, I did see it. I appreciate you guys for letting me know. It was cool. So I wish that I had been, right, and like they had won. That would have been a little bit more fun. But, hey. At least I get the publicity either way, so it all works out. But it also tells you that clearly someone in the building is listening to the pod. So we already knew that, but it's nice to see it confirmed, because they had to pull that audio from somewhere. So, we got some questions for those of you in the chat. Feel free to drop in any of your questions or comments. We'll get to those. And I'd hoped we'd be doing this after a win this week, but sometimes the football gods are not just. Sometimes things don't go your way, and that's what happened on Sunday. Before we dive into that, I do want to get we haven't heard from Dave or Adnan yet about that game, and I know people are asking about our thoughts on the game. I've talked about it at length. I recorded 2 pods with Jordan excuse me, with Jordan about that game, because I screwed up the first recording and we had to record it again after about 30 minutes. So that, big fan of Jordan Watkins for helping out with that. But Dave, I'll go to you first. Just a lot of people are hitting the panic button. I'm really glad this wasn't week 1 that this happened, because this would have been much darker. But where is your level of panic? How are you feeling now that we have lost our first game?
No panic. Obviously, it's 3 games in. They're 2-1, so there's some built-in buffer toward panic. Even if things go poorly this week, you're still a 500 ball club in a division that clearly has problems. Baker Mayfield lost pending, as we were talking about before the show. But I think I'm not panicking about the offense, but I am very worried about the offense. I remember reading comments on a video I did with Aaron Freeman last week where people were like, you're being way too critical. Desmond Ritter's fine. This passing game's going to figure it out. And now this week they're like, string him up, kill him. So, it's a bit of a different mood here. But I do think that, those woes, these issues with the offense were here for the first 2 weeks. They just got papered over because the Falcons got going late. and this time they didn't. So I think that should prompt hopefully some reflection from. They know what they need to do. It's just a question of when they can do it. I believe I've said many times Ritter has the talent to play much better than this. You see flashes of it. I think that the offensive line was good enough last year to think that they won't be this terrible all year long. And we certainly know that Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier are great players, and they will get going. So it's just a question of getting more than one of those things going in a given week and not throwing the game away. But Ritter's not getting benched. We know that. There's no changes to this offensive line coming because who are you going to switch to? And, there's nobody you're going to bench from, the skill position. So this is going to have to be just coaching and player improvement. And so I am worried about how quickly that's going to come together. And that's my big takeaway from this loss, because the defense still looks good and I'm really excited about them. But yeah, offensively, they got to get this thing going, or we're going to, it's not going to be 6 points again, I don't think, hopefully, but it's going to be another loss against Jacksonville if they can't figure something out.
Yeah, it's really the most alarming thing is the offensive line. And I think that was what we were all feeling the most confident in going into this year, that the offensive line was going to be good. So we would be able to get a really great look at Desmond Ridder and figure out once and for all if he was the guy. And so far, it's not like Desmond Ridder has really done anything to impress. I mean, I think he deserves credit, obviously, for the Green Bay game, winning that, very sharp fourth quarter. But, it's been pretty iffy otherwise. Leads the league in turnover-worthy plays and turnover-worthy play percentage. The turnover luck has been good, and maybe there's something to that the way he throws, where he does get a lot of velocity, especially on the short stuff, makes those hard to catch for defenders who are probably not known for their ability to catch. So maybe there is something to that, like a weird bonus to his throwing style. But it's been hard to even evaluate Ridder because of how bad the offensive line has been. But I know we've got our dedicated Desmond Ridder hater here and Adnan Ikic, so I definitely wanted to get your opinion, Adnan, on this whole situation. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
If I can throw it out before Adnan.
Yes, before we get to the hate. Yes.
I don't want to interrupt. Yeah. I did see earlier on Twitter today that the real Pat Man had posted that, kind of a split between Desmond Ridder with a clean pocket versus under pressure. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it is striking. You figure that it's going to be this way for most quarterbacks, but he is terrible under pressure and actually pretty good when he's not pressured. So that does point to too, for the Falcons to get a real look at what he can be, they have to figure out how to, keep him clean. So
yeah,
want to throw that out there.
Oh no, that's absolutely true.
Go ahead.
Yes. No, it's, and that's the thing too. And we'll cover it more, I'm sure, with more questions, but it's just, pressure is tough for any quarterback to handle. It's especially hard for young quarterbacks to handle because they're already behind the 8 ball in terms of their adjustment to NFL game speed and processing and all those things. And you can tell it's getting to Ridder for sure. But please, Adnan, give us, a rant was requested. So if you do have a rant, you can do that, or you can just, deliver a few takes, or we can save the rant for Wednesday, whatever you want. But
I'll deliver a few takes. I think the season's over, personally. No, I'm kidding. So when it comes to panic, I think it all depends on what your expectation level was coming into this season, because if your expectation level is we're going to win the Super Bowl, you should have started panicking before the season started because this team isn't winning a Super Bowl this year. I personally think that they're still on track for what I expected before the season, which was 10 wins. Back in our July show, when we went game by game, we, so far we're 3 for 3 in our game by game predictions. What we expected this team to be 2-1. We expected this team to be 2-2. So, I mean, I'm just going to sit here and say, we're not panicking now. I'm not going to be panicking even if this team loses on Sunday, because 2-2 is the goal coming into this, first quarter of the season. We said if we can get out of this at 2-2, then, we're going to be on track for winning this division. And it helps that the Saints lost in very, very funny fashion.
Yes.
A great comeback by the Packers. Shout out to Jordan Love. and those guys are up in Green Bay, big Packers fans this past Sunday. And shout out to their kicker for missing a field goal, which is doubly funny because Will Lutz would never miss a field goal like that. Shout out to the Georgia State legend. Even though he wasn't really kicking much as the Broncos were getting their asses kicked against
That's not his fault. It's not his fault. Yeah.
Not his fault. Go Panthers. Shout out to the 4-0 Georgia State Panthers, by the way. Got to get that one in there. However, the offense is an issue. Like, the offense is a big problem right now in moving forward. Like, sure, there's no shame in losing to the Lions. That's a very good football team. I do personally think, and I made the take on the show last week, this was a missed opportunity. The Lions came into this game so banged up, and you really couldn't take advantage of any of it. Like, they just had their way, like, with the Falcons. The defense kind of, the defense had their moments of frustration, particularly when Jared Goff was just picking them apart. I think he had like 11 straight completions at one point, like all over the middle, and he was just he was just taking it downfield. But the defense locked in because the play, like, you had Caden Ellis, you had Grady Jarrett, you had Jesse Bates, all individually step up on the defensive end and sort of just almost single-handedly end a few drives for the Lions, really giving the offense a chance. The issue is on offense, nobody can step up. Like, right now, I feel like it's so easy to defend this Falcons team for opposing defensive coordinators because the game plan is just so simple of, all right, we're going to shut down the run. We're going to make sure Bijan Robinson can't beat us, which credit to Detroit, they did so. The running backs really had no room to run. The Lions just stacked that box.
Oh, yeah. They had 9 players most downs in the box. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all right, we're going to make the quarterback beat us. And Desmond Ridder is not really doing that. He hasn't really proven that he can do that even with the stacked box, and he's not getting any help from his offensive line, which looks terrible in pass protection right now. I was going through some of the PFF marks. Drew Dahlman, Chris Lindstrom, and Caleb McGarry all have low 50s grades when it comes to pass blocking. Like, this offensive line is just a bunch of run blocking merchants right now, and Jake Matthews, who has been very good and very consistent, as Jake Matthews always is. But I mean, I'm so disappointed, like, in McGarry, like, he got the new contract, but especially in Lindstrom 3 games in. Like, this is a guy that got $100 million contract. He is paid the premium for his position. He broke the record for his position, and 3 games in, he does not look good. Like, he looks like a below average starter in the NFL right now. Now, in fairness, it is a small sample size. He does deserve the benefit of the doubt for what we've seen the last couple of years. And I do think he's going to turn it around. But the O-line's a big problem right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's a massive problem. But even when it feels like Ridder, even when he is getting a cleaner pocket, even when he's not like under duress right away, it feels like his pocket presence and his pocket awareness really isn't there. He took 7 sacks this last game. Most of them were on the offensive line. A few of those were on him as well. Here's a novel idea as well. Like, a quarterback can be at fault for some of the sacks that he takes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of his passes were, in a clean pocket were not the best. He set his receivers up over the middle to take some really nasty hits in that fourth quarter. There was another 2 dropped interceptions, I think, in this game, actually. One of them, I think they called a pick, but they called it back on the field, which it was a good effort play by the Lions player. But overall, Arthur Smith is also not calling a great game. There was a lot of talk on Twitter, a lot of 2 wide receiver, a lot of 2 wide receiver formations where you only had a couple of route concepts going. It's just a big all of the above problem on offense, and it's something that really has to get figured out sooner rather than later, because we talked about it after the first couple of games. You can beat some bad teams with the strategy of, all right, defense, we're gonna roll with the defense, we're gonna beat you with the run game. When you play some of these better teams, that's not going to work. Like, they are going to force you to beat them through the air. And one of the worst things you can be in today's NFL is a one-dimensional football team. And the worst part is the other dimension that you're lacking is what's necessary to win. It's that passing dimension. Right now, the Falcons don't have that. And I mean, they genuinely have to figure it out. But I still think this team is going, despite all of that, despite the fact that they have these limitations, I still think they're going to win 10 games for no other reason than the schedule is so bad. Bijan Robinson is so good, and this defense in general is so good that they are going to will this team to 9 to 10 wins. I think that'll be enough to win the NFC South, and I think we will see this team in the playoffs. However, the issue will become if that sort of blinds the coaching staff into thinking that, all right, we won 10 games, we don't really have to make any changes going into next season. That's where that's where it can be a curse in disguised as a blessing, so to speak. And we saw it last year. Exactly. We see that this coaching staff will do that. We saw it last year. They refused to pull Mariota until this team was nearly mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. It's something that you have no effect over, and you're just letting that stuff sort of dictate your decision making. And that really cannot happen, or this team will have this team's long-term outlook won't be that bright.
Yeah, they have to make the necessary changes depending on what we see this year. And one of the biggest questions, of course, is can Desmond Ridder do it or not? And obviously we're not really close to figuring that out yet. I know everyone wants to have a decision made on a quarterback after a couple of games. But that's just not how this works. We're going to have to wait it out and see. But I do think the nice thing about Ridder versus Mariota is that Ridder has the potential and the expectation that he should get better as the season goes on. Whereas Mariota, being a 5, 6, 7 year veteran, you've kind of seen what he is. What his ceiling is. That there's not really that much more room for growth at that point in his career. Ridder has played 7 games. Mariota's played 7 years, so it's sort of we could see significant growth from Ridder this year. We could see a little bit of growth. Maybe we don't see any growth, but the baseline expectation of Ridder will probably get better throughout the season is realistic. The biggest question and the most important thing is how much better is that? Is it good enough to be a playoff team? Is it good enough for him to be the long-term starter? Or is it just good enough for this team to be just very mediocre and you're really looking for more? We don't know that yet. We've got a long way to go. But certainly the expectation should be that the offensive line is playing better than this, because it's it stunts your ability to even evaluate things when it's that big of a liability. So hopefully we can get that fixed up. But all right, we do have some questions. Some more questions to get to in this one. We got Daniel first asking about Troy Anderson. Is he okay? Daniel, I don't think he's okay. I don't know exactly what's going on, but there is fear that it's a season-ending injury for Troy Anderson, which would be very unfortunate. But as soon as we get any information, I will tweet it out immediately. We'll put it up on the site. At this point, though, the prognosis is not looking good, according to what Arthur Smith said. So obviously, big loss there. So we'll hope for the best with Troy Anderson, Daniel, but at this point doesn't look good, certainly. We got Mad Tom. Oh yeah, next man up. And Nate Landman, honestly.
Nate Landman, He's looked good the first couple of games, but we talked about it last week with the Lions injuries. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you, no matter what the injury is. You just sort of have to, trust your depth, trust the decision making, and I mean it's an NFL season. Nobody's going to be healthy throughout the entire year, so this is just sort of part of it.
Yeah, it just is what it is. Yeah. Well, first question from Mad Tom K. What's up, Mad? He says, "What's one positive surprise for this team through 3 games, aside from just the defense in general? Because that one's too easy." Yeah, I mean, Dave, I'll let you get the first crack at this. I have a couple of ideas, so I can wait till the end. So, Dave, what would be your positive surprise, other than just the entire defense being better than expected?
Well, since that is taken away from me, it was going
That's
to
the
be
layup. That's the layup. Yep.
I'll bring up something that we talked a little bit about before the show, which is this team's free agent signings have all worked out so far, pretty much. Like Jonnu Smith looks, I know he's not a free agent, but they traded for him. He looks revitalized here. He looks like a good blocker, good receiving option. He's got a rapport with Ritter, really strong out of the gate. Bud Dupree just had a really nice game. Certainly my expectations for Bud Dupree were fairly low, and he has exceeded them to this point. Jesse Bates has been phenomenal with a couple of maybe weak plays, but he's been excellent. He's been worth every penny and everything I've got in my couch cushions. Maybe a couple couches worth of change, actually. Caden Ellis is coming into his own. And then Calais Campbell, obviously, and David Onyemata have been terrific. Onyemata in particular has been way, way better than I expected.
Yeah, like best in the league. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, phenomenal. And I remember talking to a Saints fan on a podcast before the season began, Ralph Marlborough, over at Saints Happy Hour, and he was asking me, what do you expect from Onyemata? And I said, based on the last couple of years, if he's just an average starter, which I think is fine, it'll be a great thing for the Falcons, given how much they've struggled. So getting him to where he's like wrecking, opposing game plans is just phenomenal. So, maybe you can argue that Trey Flowers has not been, a standout signing, but he's been good in run support, and he's been forced into a larger role than he should be. So really almost everything in free agency has worked out. And we are not, I should stress this, used to that as Falcons fans. It hasn't been the case, certainly under Terry Fontenot, even if he's had some really great gems of signings over time. And it certainly wasn't the case for Thomas Dimitrov. So to spend that much money, bring in all these guys and have these early returns be so positive, it has been surprising to me. And it's been a huge positive for this team. They needed it.
Yeah, free agents have been huge so far, for sure. And I think that's where Fontenot's actually been better. The drafting, I think, has been okay. I mean, it's been like average. They have, I mean, everybody, like most teams miss on more than 50% of their draft picks. That's just a thing that fans have to learn to live with. And I think the Falcons are right about in that range. So I don't think he's performed particularly poorly or well as a drafter. But I think in free agency, we're starting to see like this is his strength. This was his background before he became a GM. He's starting to nail it now that he's got the ammunition to actually go and do stuff. So I agree with you there, Dave. Adnan, what you got? What's your nice surprise so far?
Well, considering the fact that Dave took literally every single free agent in his answer. No, I'm kidding. Well,
you can talk about those guys. Dave's was more general.
I do want to say, like, I do want to pinpoint one guy who's more under the radar right now, given the fact that he's not a big time, like, a big time star player. I want to highlight Mac Hollins for a second. Sure, he didn't have he only had one catch against the Lions, but, nobody really from the receiving corps did anything, or the entire offense. But this is a guy who I think genuinely, like, helped you win was one of the biggest reasons why you won that Packers game. He had a great game in week 1 against the Carolina Panthers. I think we talked about, that Bijan Robinson 4th down run against the Packers. He's the one that sprung the key block on that play, in addition to catching that flea flicker at the start of the 4th quarter to set that tone.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys where, it's just, we talked a little bit about the wide receiver 2 role in Atlanta throughout the offseason, about how, we were waiting for Corey Davis. We were talking about options for the second wide receiver. Like, do we have the depth? Do we have enough wide receivers? Do we have enough guys behind Drake London? And I feel like Matt Collins has come in, and 3 weeks in, he has filled in that role admirably. Sure, it's the Falcons wide receiver 2 role is one of the, more sparsely used wide receiver 2 roles in the NFL. I mean, the Falcons tight end and wide receiver 1 roles are pretty sparsely used in comparison to other teams. But, shout out to Hollins, who, has never really been that star player anywhere in the NFL. But I think last year he had a pretty solid season. He came in this year with, I think this is one of the bigger roles he's had in his entire career, and so far I think he's flourished in it.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's I mean, I think we've gotten what we've expected out of Matt Collins. Like, this is about what I thought, that he would be a capable wide receiver too, not really a needle mover necessarily in terms of like changing your perception of the team, but someone who would fill the role well and do what they need him to do. Yeah, I mean, I've been very happy with what he's provided so far. Yeah, so moving on to, oh, well, I got to give mine. Yeah, you guys covered a lot of them. I was going to shout out D. Alford, who I think, we did see some nice things from him last year, but this year gets a chance to be a true starter in the slot. Kind of, I think we were all pretty confident in what he could provide, but I think D. Alford, came in and has really sort of eliminated any concern about the slot position, to such an extent that like Clark Phillips was like inactive basically at this point. I don't think that really says anything about Clark Phillips, more that they have a lot of depth right now. And then she's been such a good run defender, which is just, when you look at his size profile, he doesn't scream a guy that would be an impact run defender, but he just makes plays against the run. He's in the right position. He's very smart. So I like it. I love what we've seen from D. Alford, and I think you guys mentioned some other good guys too, like Jonnu Smith. I was really high on Jonnu Smith, so I thought that was a little bit of because I'm not surprised by how big of an impact player he's been, but really the Jonnu Smith's blocking, I think, has been the bigger surprise. Like, the fact that he's been a really good blocker so far, definitely has surprised me, considering that he's never really been known for that. Yeah.
You're talking Arthur Smith language right now, a tight end who can block. Yes.
He just loves his short kings at tight end, Arthur Smith. He can't help himself. Those 6'3" tight ends, he's just obsessed with those guys. So, but yeah, good question for sure. We got Nico asking, in the spirit of Overreaction Monday, if Ryan Nielsen is this unconvinced by Arnold Ebiketie, why didn't we trade him? It seems like we're wasting both his time and our own. And I think people talked about it in the comments. The Falcons weren't going to get anything for Ebiketie. He was a rookie, or he's a guy coming off his rookie season, hasn't really proven anything at this point. So they'd basically just be taking, low-end picks for him that just wouldn't really be worth their time. So him being a depth player for them is more valuable than whatever day 3 pick they were going to get for Arnold Ebiketie. But I'm confused by it as well. I think we all thought that he would be the starter opposite Calais Campbell, and instead it was Bud Dupree, who hasn't exactly played well, although I do think he played well against the Lions. That was definitely his best game. Ebiketie, on the other hand, when he has played, has been productive, and I think he's one of the highest graded edge rushers on the team for Atlanta, actually. So it's a little weird, to me, that he isn't playing more, because they desperately need speed out there on the outside. So I would be surprised if he's not playing more soon. But yeah, I think it's a great question. Do you guys have any takes on that? Why he seems to be, I don't know if he's in the doghouse, but he's definitely not in the coach's favor right now.
I don't know. Like, we noticed it. Like, it has to be something going on. Like, maybe it's a scheme thing. Maybe they don't. But even so, like, even if it is a scheme thing, like, this team has 3 sacks through 3 games. Like, they need talented guys out there. And, we noticed that, we talked about it in the preseason. Arnold Ebiketie was out there in the 3rd and 4th quarter, like, with the backups, with the 3rd string guys. And, that's when we saw that, we're like, okay, this is like weird. Like, we expected Ebiketie to be, one of this team's more valued contributors. And, he was out there with those guys that, a lot of whom aren't on the team anymore, or on their respective teams anymore. And, it's just something that you sort of hope gets figured out, because you spent a very high 2nd rounder on him. And yeah, like you said, if you tried to trade him right now, you're not really getting much for him. I think your best bet is to hope that that something gets figured out and that he can be productive for you. But, I don't really think that this team is the 49ers or the Eagles for you to be putting a young guy, on the bench, and to not play him because the guys in front of him aren't really getting the job done at all.
Yeah, exactly. Dave, did you have a take on Ebiketie as well?
I guess my only thought here is, if you're more conspiracy minded, Lorenzo Carter had a bigger role week 1. That has been dialed way back too. You'll notice that Carter, Ebiketie, and D'Angelo Malone are the 3 lightest guys that the Falcons have in their edge group. Bud Dupree is 10 to 15 pounds heavier than Ebiketie. Calais Campbell is obviously much, much bigger. There might just be something to this team wanting to go with their most veteran guys here in the early going as they're trying to establish things and wanting to go with their biggest, beefiest guys against, some of these early opponents. It just might be as simple as that. I can't really imagine, over the long haul that we're going to see Ebiketie and Malone just completely phased out. I think both of them showed enough last year, even if they had their ups and downs, even if Malone barely got any playing time, to think that they belong out there. So I have to think, especially with, this defensive front being older and playing a lot of snaps right now, you have to get these young guys more involved as time goes on. I think that's true on the defensive line as well. I expected to see a little bit more Graham, given what he did last year. He was another guy that was out there in the fourth quarter, hasn't had the role that I thought. So I have to think that, it's about getting these young guys ready to go for later in the season. If we go the whole year and, Campbell's playing on one leg in week 15 because he's playing 60 snaps a week, I'm not going to understand it. I'll tell you that. So I got to think there's a long-term plan here.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's also like adjusting to the scheme they were drafted into, which was this 3-4, where they were going to be playing a lot of outside linebacker, to this where like there's still room for them to have outside linebackers, and they do still have guys stand up out there sometimes, but it's not nearly as much as they were doing last season, and they just have to get used to playing with their hand in the dirt. So, Carter obviously can and has. Ebiketie hasn't as much, but both Carter and Ebiketie have played well when given an opportunity. So I think they deserve more snaps. And Zach Harrison's coming along too. He's definitely another one of those big guys. But yeah, right now, I think other than Calais Campbell, Arnold Ebiketie is the 3rd highest ranked edge rusher behind, I think Carter is 2 and Campbell's 1. So, he's it's not like he's playing poorly when he is out there. And then I also will give a shout out to Timmy Horn too, who finally got a chance to play this week. I think we were all shocked that he didn't make the roster, like that they were just going to go no nose tackle. And I think we might need to change things up and go for Timmy Horn over like Albert Huggins, who Huggins had a great preseason, but he was getting destroyed the first 2 weeks. And Timmy Horn comes in, and I think they just need that beef. Get that beef in the middle. It lets you play some faster guys outside. I think that's going to be better off in the long run. So I wouldn't be surprised if Horn gets the call up here, like permanently to the roster here soon. So,
and I'll give a shout out to Ryan Nielsen, I guess, for that. Because it seemed like Albert Huggins was his guy. And I was like, great. It doesn't matter how well Albert Huggins plays. We're going to see him every week. And, 2 weeks in, he said, all right, maybe that's too much Albert Huggins. And, whether that's matchup dictated or not, it was the right move to get Horn up there. And he essentially took his snaps this week. So I think that's a sign of somebody who's paying attention, which is nice.
Yeah. And Ryan Nielsen's done a great job through 3 weeks, way better than I think any of us thought. So I'm inclined to trust him until he gives us reason not to at this stage, which is nice to say about a Falcons defensive coordinator. I don't remember the last time we could say that. So
early Mike Nolan, very early Mike Nolan.
Very early. The amoeba.
Marquand Manuel,
yeah.
Brian Van Gorder.
Oh man.
That GIF makes me happy every time I see it. I see it like once every few months where he's just on the sideline screaming at the top of his lungs. It's magical.
It's beautiful. Beautiful stuff there. We've also
go ahead. Never forget Mike Nolan somehow outsmarting Peyton Manning on Monday Night Football with the amoeba defense in 2012.
Oh my God. It was so ridiculous.
That's the only time I've ever seen that work, was against Peyton Manning in those Denver Broncos. And it's so stupid.
legendary. It was like, this is such a ridiculous defense that like literally Peyton was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like I can't
Demons everywhere.
Yeah. Who is this man? Who red contacts? This is scaring me. I don't know what this is.
Why are they dropping their defensive tackles into coverage?
I've never encountered this. It's just so crazy. It just might work, but it did for that one game. It did. Yeah. We got George Costanza. What's up? Saying he's finally able to make it to one of these. What's up, George?
Says, my guy, George.
All right. So, can I get the gallery's take on Richie Grant? Everyone knows I haven't been a fan of the selection, but getting burned by Laporta was just bad. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a coverage bust on that play. I mean, I'm not satisfied, and UCF legend, put some respect, but I mean, I'm not satisfied with what we've seen so far. Certainly, we definitely need more from Richie Grant. That's my opinion.
No, agreed. Yeah, Richie Grant has not been him like at all. Like since he's been drafted, it's year 3, and we talked about it beforehand. We talked about it in camp. We talked about it in the offseason. If there was one guy we were really looking for to take that next step to really take this defense to a new level, it's Richie Grant. And in fairness, like the defense so far has gotten to that next level because of the free agents. But I mean, yeah, Richie Grant, this is another guy who was a high second-round pick, just like Ebiketie. He's someone where, we have direct knowledge that there were guys in the building who were pounding the table for Creed Humphrey, and instead they went with Richie Grant, and Creed Humphrey is now arguably the best center in the NFL, which is something that the Falcons could really use right now. And Richie Grant is right now a below-average free safety, or below-average strong safety, who's just, who you genuinely just need more from. Like, I need him to play better.
Yeah. He's been a really good blitzer. That's kind of the only thing right now that he has going. He's like produced pressure on, I think, every single one of his blitzes, which is kind of crazy. He has 6 so far.
That's great.
That's nice. That's great. But yeah, it's kind of low down the list of what I need from my safety. My starting safety is like how good of a blitzer. I mean, it's nice, like, but please. So I mean, it's not like he's been bad, but yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here and just say I know he hasn't been great so far this year, but I think he was pretty solid last year. I thought he was an underrated player in his first season as a starter. Certainly, his miscues are frustrating. The specific types of mistakes he makes in coverage and as a tackler are frustrating. So I get that, and you always have to have a guy on this defense that you zero in on for those kinds of mistakes. The Falcons always have one. But I do think he did enough last year to suggest that he is a capable starting safety, and I think we haven't seen it this year, but he's another guy that I expect as time rolls on, he'll pick it up. So that's my expectation. Revisit this in 4 weeks and make fun of me if I'm wrong, but I think Richie Grant's going to be just fine, personally.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's my hope too. I obviously am pulling for him. Guy that was from where I grew up, and obviously UCF player as well. So I have many irons in the fire for Richie Grant at this stage, but he doesn't really have any more excuses because the rest of the defense is now playing really well, and now he's got a great partner next to him in Jesse Bates, so he just kind of needs to turn it on. But it hasn't been like alarmingly bad through 3 games or anything like that. It's just been sort of average. And if he was like a 4th-round pick like Jalen Hawkins, I think people would probably be like, oh, well, he's fine, like for what we paid. But when you take him in the 2nd round, the expectations are a lot higher. And like this is his chance. Like if he doesn't improve his play from this point, he's just going to be a depth guy going forward. They're going to go out and get another safety. So he needs to prove himself over these next, 15 games or 14 games, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of games left, guys. Just remember, I'm not saying that you guys are doing anything weird, but just, there's a lot of football left to be played this year before we get to like, next year. Please, I hope that this team keeps us interested in this season for more than 3 games. We did have one more from George. Should the Falcons consider trading a day 3 pick to Tennessee for Malik Willis? Oh, you're tugging at my heartstrings with Malik Willis, George. I mean, look, like I love Malik Willis, so yes, absolutely, I would trade a day 3 pick for Malik Willis, given how much improvement he showed in the preseason. But like, I don't know that it really makes a lot of sense for this Falcons team unless they're trying to replace Logan Woodside. Which, like, would I rather have Malik Willis than Logan Woodside? Yeah, definitely. But like, I mean, it's not like we'll see who gets it here and there. Like I like Malik Willis, but they're not gonna like pull Desmond Ridder from Malik Willis. So like this would be more of a long-term thing. But I mean, I think eventually we could see something like this where the Falcons target a developmental higher upside quarterback, especially if Ritter's like in that sort of like good enough but not like great standpoint where you're like, we're probably going to be looking to replace him soon. Like he's not going to elevate this offense, but he's fine in the short term. So in that case, we're probably looking at them adding some kind of high upside developmental guy, whether that's in like the late first round or like by trading for somebody or signing one of these, Malik Willis type guys. But I don't know. What do you guys think about either Malik Willis or bringing in some other sort of higher upside, like third string quarterback?
Dave, I took the last one first. You can go ahead.
I kind of got a question about this, and I can't remember who it wasn't Malik Willis, but it was a similar type of question. Like Fields, it was Justin Fields. Like if the Bears give up on Justin Fields next year, it wouldn't obviously be this year, I think. Would the Falcons be interested in getting him? And I think sort of the direction that the Falcons are going to go in is not that direction. It's not going to be a Willis. It's not going to be a Fields. It's not going to be a Trey Lance. They're not going to go for a guy who hasn't proven anything at the NFL level, is maybe still young, but is already, the clock is ticking on that second contract. They still have work to do. They're either going to go get, the high upside guy in the draft, or they're going to get a veteran quarterback who they know will be good right now. And that's all dependent on, if Ridder continues to not show enough to be the long-term guy in Atlanta, right? For this year, they're not going to do, I think, any of that. I can't see them going out and getting anybody. I think they're happy with Heineke behind Ridder, and if they need to play him, they will. And I think Arthur Smith loves Logan Woodside, and without Felipe Franks here, he needs one of his guys in that building, and he's got him. So, I just think any idea of them trading for somebody like Willis, who I like, Fields, who I remain intrigued by, even if the Bears have probably ruined him for life. It's not that I would be necessarily opposed to that if the Falcons are thinking long-term, like this isn't it with Ridder. It's just something that I can't see happening this year. And beyond this year, if you're moving on from Ridder, I see it being draft pick or proven established guy that you're giving a contract to be your guy for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think there's that in between trading for a high upside, signing a high upside younger guy that you still have to develop, because we'll also be, if Ridder isn't the guy too, after this year, you'll be entering the 4th straight season with a different starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. And I don't think Arthur Smith can survive that going wrong.
No. So yeah, I agree with you there. Adnan, any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I would love to talk about potentially trading for quarterbacks, or acquiring a quarterback in the next offseason, but that's the next offseason type discussion. But no, I think Willis would have made a lot more sense if, for example, we still had, an aging Matt Ryan on the team, and then you bring in one of these young guys who didn't work out. No, I think it's genuinely has. Right now it's Ridder. I don't think it would make sense to bring in another guy from the exact same draft class who would come in to be the third string guy. I think if it ends up not being Ridder, like as the guy, then you either have to find someone very high up in the draft, possibly a trade up, because like I said, I think this team will be picking in the 20s, or you need to go get an actual established, like, good quarterback, someone who has proven to be very good in the NFL, through free agency or through a trade. And I, for what it's worth, I do think that there will be some possible options this coming off season. But yeah, I don't think that it really helps the team to get one of these younger guys who's just buried on his own depth chart, who will probably, be buried in Atlanta's depth chart this year.
Yeah, I don't think it happens this year, but I wouldn't be upset in the offseason if it's clear that Ritter's not the guy and the Titans are moving on from Willis and they're going to go to Will Levis. Then, if they're willing to trade him for a day 3 pick, I don't have a problem with that. But I think the Falcons are going to be much more aggressive with going after like a veteran or going after someone in the draft if Ritter's clearly not it. So I think Malik Willis is not enough of a step for them. I think that's like probably not going to be aggressive enough for what they're trying to do. I did want to get to one more from D in the Discord, saying that he's worried about what he thinks is a lack of separation from Pitts this year. He's wondering if any of us think that he might be like not running his routes correctly, or if he's still bothered by injury. Do you think it's, him possibly not putting enough effort into his routes, or that he might just be getting frustrated with the game plan, or is this an overreaction? Yeah, I mean, to be kind, I don't see what people have been complaining about, with people complaining that Pitts is not running good routes or not running routes correctly or being lazy with his routes. I don't think that's happening at all. I think this is a case of people getting way too hyped up and just sort of seeing what they want to see, which is, oh, the players hate Ritter or something like that. No, Kyle Pitts is getting plenty of separation. Go back and this is not like a watch the tape thing. Like D, I appreciate the question, and I think it's a reasonable question. It's Pitts is fine. He's getting plenty of separation. Go back and watch the Panthers game. You will see him completely dusting people and having them fall over from how good his routes are. And I know you specifically mentioned that the play against the Lions that was considered an overthrow. It was an overthrow. It was absolutely an overthrow by Desmond Ridder, because I mean, I think people don't realize like that Pitts makes it look easy when he's running at full speed. Like he doesn't look like he's struggling to like run full speed. Like he had 2 yards of separation on his man, and Ridder overthrew him. Like, and Pitts is not getting that kind of separation on a corner if he's not running full speed. Like he's fast, but he's not like that fast where he can half-ass it and get that much separation on somebody. So I don't think it's a lack of effort from Pitts or any sort of shadiness going on. I think it's a combination of things as to why this passing game isn't running at full speed. And we talked about it earlier, right? The offensive line is playing really, really poorly, which is a big concern. As a result, Desmond Ridder not playing well at all. And, it's the play calling, I think, is also a little bit to blame for what's going on. So there's a confluence of factors that are leading to Pitts not really playing up to what we expect. But I don't think it has anything to do with a lack of effort or, Pitts being disappointed in Ridder or the scheme or something. I mean, if he was frustrated, he'd be well within his rights, but I don't think he would show that frustration on the field. That would be a big red flag to anyone potentially looking at giving him a contract in the future. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's too much of a professional to do that. Like, Pitts has never been someone who has really generated any off the field buzz. He's a guy that just goes about his work. But yeah, no, this is one of those things where, unfortunately, I do not think that we will really see Pitts unlocked, so to speak, until we, figure out the passing game. And that means everything. That means the O-line has to be better. That means the quarterback has to be better. And I mean, it's unfortunate because I feel like he's getting a lot of flack for stuff that's completely out of his control. We noticed it last year. He was, being proclaimed as a bust. There were people, especially in the fantasy football community, who were talking a lot of shit about him because, they only look at the yardage, they only look at the box score, and, you're not seeing Mariota overthrowing him on, a 2.5 minute highlight reel that someone made of just complete Kyle Pitts overthrows. You're not seeing, this year him getting that separation and Desmond Ridder not looking his way or, doing something else with the ball. And it's just, or Desmond Ridder overthrowing him against the Lions, like you said. It's one of those things where it's frustrating for him, and I completely get the frustration. But unfortunately, I don't think that there is really a short-term solution to it right now.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we all have to get. But notably, Desmond Ridder has already connected on more deep passes than Mariota did in his entire season last year. So, at least we have that.
The bar is the floor. Mariota connected on 1.
Yes, so we've already hit more than that. So there's nowhere to go but up now, odd non. So
Dave, how far we've fallen. Matt Ryan's rolling over in his grave right now.
Again, Matt Ryan very much alive. Yeah.
He's doing a great job for CBS.
He's doing a great job.
Maybe we can
very
bring
much
him
alive.
This year.
He lives in Atlanta, Georgia.
Bring him in this year. I think this team would win 10 games with Matt Ryan right now.
Given how he looks behind that Colts offensive line, allowing all that pressure, I don't know that I want to subject him to this either. But yeah, Dave, any takes on that or anything else before we sign off?
No, the only thing I'd say is, I think that Ritter did overthrow him on that first route, but I think that the one thing that people are ignoring a little bit is that Pitts is still recovering from an injury too, right? So I thought on the replay, it certainly looked like he was pulling up a little bit, which I think they noted on the broadcast. So, that is also a complicating factor for him. He is out there a lot. If he is not exactly 100%, and I suspect he's somewhere in the 90s, then the fact that he's not going to be, dead sprinting down the field necessarily on every single play, especially not one where he maybe doesn't have the best chance at the ball, that's not to be, frowned upon. I do think to Adnan's point, like he just became a target at some point last year for people who wanted to explain away what Mariota was doing, or fantasy diehards who were really pissed that they drafted him early and he hasn't played well. So I'm not concerned about effort. Is the long-winded thing I'm trying to say here. I think it'll come together for him. It's on the offense to take the guy that they drafted at number 4 overall and make this work with him. So
yeah, and it could very well be that he is continuing to recover from that injury. He didn't get a full camp, a full off season, certainly. So, we're working on it. But yeah, it's certainly not an effort thing, and I don't think there's any animosity brewing there at this stage. Now, if this offense still doesn't do anything over the remainder of the season and Pitts has another poor year, I could definitely see some animosity brewing, because now it's starting to affect his potential to get a big contract. So, we'll see. But at this point, I wouldn't be too concerned. Yeah. Guys, lots of great questions. I think we got to pretty much everything. Maybe we missed one, but we appreciate everyone, all the questions, all the patrons for supporting us and getting the takes in. This is a fun show. Appreciate everyone. Thanks again to all you guys for taking part. Thanks to everyone for playing in the fantasy leagues as well. Before we take off, I want to thank once again our co-hosts tonight. First of all, Dave Choate at the Falcoholic himself. Dave, anything you'd like to let the people know about?
Just the great work the team is doing at the Falcoholic, as I always like to plug. A lot to talk about this week with the Lions loss. Certainly some thoughts about how the offense is going to come out of this, and looking ahead to the Jaguars in London. And if we can pull it together, we'll have a little guide for anybody who's making the trip across and looking for places to go eat, stay, work on their British accent and so forth. So
absolutely. Check that out, guys, for sure. Also with us, of course, Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you'd like to let the people know about?
Writing my weekly articles for the Falcoholic, Fantasy Stud and Dud, just went up tonight. What if we win or lose? Series history. Just all the great work at the Falcoholic. Like Dave said, it's a great one-stop shop. I think the team is really firing on all cylinders here, as we normally are at this stage. It's always it's a lot more fun to cover a team that wins, and it's a lot more. The past 2 weeks have been so great. It's been the first time since I've been here at the Falcoholic that this team has been above 500. Yeah. It's been five very long years. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that it continues to be a lot of fun, and that this team continues to stay above 500. Dave was talking to me off air, and he did want me to let you guys know that if you guys have any complaints at all about the team, just to add him at the Falcoholic on Twitter. So yeah, just all of your complaints, all of your takes on Desmond Ridder, on Kyle Pitts, just at the Falcoholic Twitter.
Yep. We need that engagement, guys. Help us get those internet clicks. Okay. Our families are starving. So guys, thank you so much. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Like, subscribe, leave that 5-star review on your platform of choice. We really appreciate you guys. And also this show is presented by Bet Online. Also, thanks to those guys for supporting the show. We will see everyone next time we'll be back Wednesday night, of course, for Falcoholic Live at 8 p.m. And make sure to check out our third episode of Trench Talk with Jordan Watkins. That's going to be up by the time you guys see this as well. So until next time, guys, thank you so much. Have a great night. See you